Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Scott Clark.
And I'm Dave Dale.
I learned this from one of the top guys at Hydro many years ago. And he said statistically, the most dangerous thing we can do in a day is back out of a parking lot, statistically. And what? You're laughing? Ben's, why are you laughing? Oh, okay. So it's statistically the most dangerous thing. So he was telling me that when he started in Hydro, this was many, many years ago, probably about 30, 40 years ago, he said there was something like 4 people would die out in the bush or whatever when they're doing their job every year. It was just the math. That's how it went. Remember Roy Slack in mining said to me that there was a stat every 1,000 meters someone would die. And this was back in the 80s. And it was like, he said, it's unacceptable. So the first thing he wanted to do is, what is the most statistically dangerous thing we could do every day? And that is backing out of a parking lot. So he started...
Backing out of a parking lot.
Backing out of a parking lot. So
parking space.
Parking space. So he backed in, and that became like a safety policy.
I just wanted to be a clarification whether you're talking about someone backing out of their driveway or actually just backing up so that they can leave.
It would be backing out of a driveway too. Backing up your car... Yeah. Statistically is one of the most dangerous things you're going to do in a day.
Well, and we're talking about backing into a spot, right? So statistically speaking, my only accidents ever driving for 40 years have been backing into a parking spot. Once at the mother house, because they have those brown lamps, and I didn't see it because it was right beside a tree.
Okay.
And the other time it was my house when I was driving the plow.
So the thing I'll say about you, why you get a pass on all of this, is because you're the only person I know that has been run over by someone backing into a parking spot. So I know.
It's true.
I know.
Yeah.
You didn't know that, Ben? Yeah, he was run over. How old were you?
2 or 3.
2 or 3. He was run over.
Okay, he was an adult though.
Do you want to? Oh, yeah.
You got something really to say, Ben?
Well, no, you're not an adult.
Yeah.
So I can understand it as a kid, absolutely. But it makes it sound like somebody was backing into like a parking spot and you were walking behind them and then got...
Well, it was our neighbor backing their boat trailer into their driveway, and they went into our driveway and ran me over.
That's different.
So he gets a bit of a pass. So going back to my story about statistically, and you go to any mining company around town, even Hydro, those people back into a parking space. And you'll see it. I was over at Farraco the other day. All the trucks are all backed in. They're all backed in because, they're very safety conscious. And we're a communications company here, right? So if we have communications people coming in, or not communications people, but mining people and different people that we service, they're going to see right away whether, the type of, do we walk the walk when it comes to safety? They'll see that Dave Dale doesn't give a shit. And he just drives straight in.
It was funny. Yesterday, there's 6 staff cars all backed in, nice.
Mm-hmm.
There was 5 visitors here, all pulled in, front forward.
Can I tell you why I back in?
Yeah.
There's a very specific reason I back in. Because somebody, and I'm not naming names, has, well, not anymore, but had a truck. And
I had a truck. I think I was the only one that had a truck.
I'm talking about you.
Oh, okay.
He's pretty quick, man.
So when I started here, I would go in, I would park in. And then as I tried to get out, I couldn't because your truck it was really hard because your truck would take up so much space in the parking lot that I was like, screw this, I'm just going to back in. So that's why I back in, not because of safety, just because it's more convenient than trying to back out.
Well, I think mathematically, you have to back up at least once, no matter what. So
it's easier to back in.
You're backing in. You're also backing up. Like, what's the difference? Statistically, also with these studies and this thing, was this before all the cameras in the car? Because I have one in my vehicle that now, I think I've reduced a risk of hitting somebody.
Oh, you have with a camera? For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you look at our parking lot, it's where you back to, it's bushes and a fence. So the likelihood, you can just do the math. It's pretty simple.
Well,
The
often there's
likelihood-
a kid playing in beside us.
In-
I could argue this thing all day. We could have a
well,
lot of fun.
because you're a goof.
The parking
That's
lot
why.
is also not parallel to the walls, and it really messes with me. So where the fence is and where the neighbors are, it's not parallel. So you seem like you're right, and then you look forward and you realize, oh, I'm not straight. I'm telling if you
Are
did the
you
measurements
high right now? Like,
No, I
Are
am
you
dead
saying
serious.
our lot is not straight?
Yes, that's
Our
what I'm
lot
saying.
is bent?
No,
I
that
thought
might
I
be
was
the
going
building.
crazy.
It's the building that's bent?
No, the building is one way, and the parking lot is. I don't know if it's the fence or the parking lot, but it is slightly off. So when you're squared up to the fence, you're slightly off from the building, and when you're on the building, you're slightly off. It messes with me. I can't park straight here because it messes with you. I'm dead serious.
Okay, we need someone smarter in the room. Who's
And
coming
we're
up for
about to
interview?
have somebody smarter
Oh,
in the
thank
room.
God,
And we're
because
gonna and
this
a
is-
smarter topic too.
Yeah, and a way smarter. Let's get off of this. This is crazy. You're saying our lot is bent?
Yes.
Okay.
We before we thank our sponsor, we want to say that we have Karin Pratte, chemical engineer from the city, who has the file for the PFAS, and they have an open house today. It's at the Memorial Gardens. I think it starts at 3. There's a presentation at 4, and there's another presentation at 6. So she's going to give us all the background about the PFAS situation, the city's role, DND, the health unit, MOE. So this is going to be a really good conversation to have.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting her.
Right on. Well, here we go. Now for a word from our sponsor.
Founded in 1968, Voyager Aviation is a proud member of our community, providing worldwide aviation services from our headquarters right here in North Bay. If you're looking for a challenge, change, or want to expand your current career in aviation, Voyager is hiring for a wide range of technical and non-technical roles, including pilots, aircraft maintenance personnel, corporate administration, machinists, supply chain professionals, and more. Be part of a workforce that is over 400 strong, supporting humanitarian, government, defense, and civil aviation operations around the world. For a career in aviation and beyond, learn more about open positions and career paths at voyav.com.
Today we have Karin Pratte from the city, civil engineer. She is a chemical engineer. She's going to be the city's rep at the open house next today, because we're recording this a week ahead of time, at the Memorial Gardens, and it's about PFAS. But more about that later. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You excited about the event? I remember, I'll just a little story. I remember attending an event. This was a few years back, and they were going to put a transformer station in Sweetman's Gardens, and they had a public session. It was poor Jerry Knox, and it was like, oh, this is so. Are you ready for the meeting? Are you ready for people who are going to talk to you about PFAS?
Yeah, I like to think that I'm ready and the agencies that we're working with are ready. And when I said I was excited, what I mean is, yes, this is a challenging file, but I'm looking forward to giving some information to the community and updating the community about what is going on. We've been doing lots of work in regards to PFAS here in North Bay, and we're working with other agencies on this. And so all 4 agencies are all going to be there to talk to the community. And I am excited about that all 4 of these agencies are there to really address any questions, concerns that the public might have in regards to PFAS in North Bay.
It's a real massive education piece. I know, of late, because I've only started learning about it in the last few months, since we've done a couple of interviews, and when I have dinner parties and we talk about it, and about the cleanup of D&D, doing cleanup of the PFAS because of the foam, and people are like, what's PFAS? And then most people don't know what PFAS is, and I always thought, oh, it's about Teflon pans, But as we've got deeper and deeper in this, PFAS is in everything. It's in my Gore-Tex clothing, my waterproof shoes, my PFAS is everywhere. And so this meeting that you're about to have, tell us about, is it really centered around one thing or many things on PFAS? Like just the D&D cleanup, or is it going to be other things?
It's going to be centered on PFAS in the community of North Bay. So we will be speaking, the majority of the agencies will be speaking to how we are working on PFAS here in our community. There will be some background information about, for example, what is PFAS. And PFAS is a group of compounds, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, and the acronym is PFAS. But that really just stands for a group of substances that have a carbon bond with a fluorine attached to them. And they are very prevalent, and they bioaccumulate, and they are man-made. And so these compounds are in, like you said, lots of different products. So, like you said, they're in like your Gore-Tex clothing, and they're in stain-resistant couches, and they're in rugs and carpets, and they're in makeups and, lip glosses, and they can be in a lot of different products that we use every day. However, they are also in firefighting foams. And previously were in firefighting foams. And so that's really what we'll be talking about, is how they came to be in our community, and that's through firefighting foam at our airport site, and what we're doing to, remediate that issue.
And what are we doing to remediate it? What is the deal with D&D, and what's the city's role?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'll start with what the city's role is. The city of North Bay, in my mind, has two main roles as it relates to PFAS in our community. The first one being the city of North Bay is the owner and the operator of our drinking water system. So our municipal drinking water system, we own that system, we operate that system. And we are responsible to ensure that our municipal drinking water meets all legislative requirements. Those legislative requirements are set by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. So the Ontario Ministry of the Environment will be at this meeting. And they are the ones who set that drinking water legislation and environmental legislation. The city's second role would be, we are the owner of the Jack Garland Airport site. And that is where the majority of the PFAS that's in our community has been released. And it was released between the 1970s and the 1990s through firefighter training. And the Department of National Defense at the time are the ones who did those releases. At the time, that was standard practice. They were not aware that this would be creating a potential, contamination issue, risk to, human health and to the environment. And at the time, it was, standard practice that they were doing that. And so those releases occurred between the 70s and 90s.
One of many across North America, sites like that, using that foam.
Yes. I think CFB does have, Canada Forces Base does have other sites that had this, and North Bay being one of them. So Transport Canada owned the airport site at the time, but the city now is the owner of that site. So the city is managing the remediation at the site. So those are kind of our two main roles, is we're managing the remediation at the site that had the majority of the releases, and we are the owner and operator of the drinking water system.
The site, of course, as documented in some of the other stories, leached out that chemical down through Lees Creek and came into Delaney Bay, right?
The PFAS has migrated into different water courses, right, including Lees Creek, and absolutely has made its way into Trout Lake. And there are, small concentrations of PFAS in Trout Lake, also concentrations in Lees Creek. And so I think it's important that I explain that the four agencies and kind of what all of their roles and responsibilities are to kind of fully understand. And that's going to be a big part of the open house as well. So I kind of have already explained the City of North Bay's role. But the Department of National Defense, I've already kind of touched on, they're the ones who did the majority of those releases. So they are managing all of the remediation work and risk mitigation off-site. And when I say off-site, that means anything not on the Jack Garland Airport site.
Oh, okay.
So they would be doing all of the sampling in these water courses like Lees Creek and Doran Creek and all of those waterways. And they're doing sampling, private drinking water wells, soil sampling on their site. And they're dealing with kind of the area of influence away from that Jack Garland Airport site that the city owns.
Oh, okay.
And then we have the two other agencies that, are working with the city on this project. And that's the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit. So our health unit is responsible to ensure that there are no health risks to the public and that they would inform the public of any risks to public health. They're responsible for public health, of course, as being our health unit. So that's the role that they play. And then we also have the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. And as I said, they set environmental legislation as well as drinking water legislation, and they would be holding parties accountable that aren't meeting that legislation. So all four of those agencies really have been working together since we determined that there was PFAS in our community and are having very regular meetings, stemming all the way back to early 2017, having meetings, every 2 months for the past, 7-8 years. All four of these agencies coming together to determine what is our path forward, what is each agency's role and responsibility in that remediation, and sharing information.
The testing started when and why? 2017, I think, or something like that?
Yeah, so 2017, so I should, go back. The city first kind of heard the word PFAS, I guess you could say, in 2013. Okay. The Ministry of the Environment did send a letter to the city of North Bay informing us that there were low levels of PFAS in Trout Lake. Basically noted currently they do not pose a risk and no further action required. And then in late 2016, early 2017, the city then was informed by the Department of National Defense that PFAS was detected in some of the sampling that they were doing at CFB North Bay. And Lees Creek, Trout Lake, noted that there are concentrations of PFAS. It's an emerging contaminant, and then brought these four agencies together. So D&D brought these four agencies together, including the city of North Bay. And that's when D&D started doing some additional sampling in Lees Creek. The Ministry of the Environment started doing additional sampling in Trout Lake. And the city of North Bay as owner of the Jack Garland Airport site. And knowing that that is where the majority of the releases occurred, back in the 50s, the 70s to the 90s, understood that we should start doing some sampling there because that's where we might find the highest concentrations. And so the city of North Bay then started working towards getting some sampling done on site.
Okay. Now, I have just a little bit about the concentrations and the regulations. First, we know that there's going to be some changes to the regulations at the federal level coming down the chute, and I know that the Americans have talked about setting other regulations that are different than what we're following now. Can you explain any of that?
Sure. So right now, the Ministry of the Environment has set an interim advice value, and that interim advice value is 70 parts per trillion. So that is the value that has been set by our regulator. So drinking water is regulated by the province and by the Ministry of the Environment. So 70 parts per trillion is the value that they've given us. Just for reference, the city of North Bay is at, our municipal drinking water, which we test quarterly, is around 55 parts per trillion. So we are below that 70 that has been set by the Ministry of the Environment. You kind of alluded to the federal regulation that has been put out. So it's not really a regulation. It's an objective that has been put out for consultation.
Oh, okay.
And it is 30 parts per trillion. And it's put out by Health Canada. And again, it's just out for consultation. So hasn't necessarily been adopted even by Health Canada and has not been adopted by our regulator, being the province of Ontario and Ministry of the Environment. And that 30 is the sum of...
This is where it gets complicated.
I know. And so I hope I don't get too complicated here or too technical. So the 30 is the sum of any PFAS that are detectable. And PFAS, there's millions of PFAS. And so these compounds are just, there's several different compounds, millions of compounds that make up these substances. So there's actually only about 29 of them that you can test in a lab. So the 30 is the sum of any that you can test in a lab.
Right.
So if eventually there's methods that allow for detecting additional compounds, they would be included in that. The 70 that I mentioned that Ontario has released as their interim advice value, that is the sum of 11 PFAS compounds.
Oh, okay.
So there's the difference there. Now, you also mentioned the United States. So the US EPA has also released a value, and their value is, I hope I'm accurate in this, is 0.04 parts per trillion. So that's also, right, significantly more stringent than the 30 and the 70. And in fact, the 0.04 is not even detectable with current analytical methods.
Oh, okay.
So that makes it very difficult, I assume, in the United States to determine if you've met that criteria when you can't necessarily detect at those small levels. And to give you an idea of parts per trillion, I mean, this is very, very small concentrations that we're looking at. So 1 part per trillion would be equivalent to, 3.5 drops in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, or would be equivalent to 30 seconds in a million years. So this is very, very small concentrations that we're talking about, and that, poses additional challenges to this project.
Now, at what level have we proven that there's going to be a health impact to somebody? I know that the knowledge of it being pervasive started with the company hiding the fact that their own workers were getting really sick, and then they found out that it was everywhere. But it's hard to tell at what level does it actually. And I guess maybe this is for health professionals, right?
I was just about to answer you
I can see it.
To say, you know what?
Because I haven't heard anybody say that what they're basing these standards or these parts per million on.
I can speak a bit about how they might, some of the research that's potentially gone into it. But the health, in terms of health impacts, I'm just not the right person to answer that question. But that is why I'm so glad that we have all 4 agencies at this open house, because we will have the health experts there that can answer the health-related questions. We will have the Ministry of the Environment there in the province that can talk about legislation and how a legislation gets adopted. And then you have the city and D&D, who are the ones who are really remediating. The city of North Bay is remediating on site at kind of what we call the hot spot, the most concentrated area. And then you have the Department of National Defense, and they're remediating off-site and looking at risks that are off-site. So you have all 4 agencies that can really answer these questions that the public might have. But going back to the health-based question that you had, so I won't be able to answer that, but maybe our health unit will be able to provide some insight to somebody at it. Now, I can say that these values that have been determined, the Ministry of the Environment, and they'll talk about it, are technical values. So these values are based on technology. So they've set the value at, we know that treatment technology out there can meet these objectives. So the 70, for example, and the 30 that I talked about, they are treatment-based. So they know there's technology out there that can treat to these values. So it's not necessarily the numbers are totally based on health impacts. They're also based on, is there treatment technology out there that can meet this? Because if there's no treatment technology that can meet it, then that would pose a significant challenge.
It's like the Liberals saying that they'll control the deficit in vote 5 years.
No comment.
Karin, this is in my time learning more about PFAS. It's because we're sort of focused on what's happening at the airport, which I'm sure all airports use the same foam over the years, so it's been used everywhere. So PFAS is prevalent everywhere, and as you said, there's millions of different combinations. Well, one of the things that in our discussions in other podcasts was around, someone said to me, well, when you wash your car and you have all that really cool stuff and everything beads off, and I go, yeah, I love washing my car. It's one of the things I love on a Saturday morning and Sunday. I love washing it, and PFAS. That's all PFAS. And I'm lucky enough. I live right on Lake Nipissing, so that drains right into Lake Nipissing. So it feels like there's this massive education piece. So I understand the meeting's happening. We're talking about one specific thing and the different creeks and Trout Lake, but it's prevalent everywhere. Is it the city's responsibility to start an education? Is it whose responsibility is to get us to start understanding? I've painted the little yellow fish on the drains, and I've done that with my kids. But I didn't know washing my car was putting PFAS into the lake.
It's a good question.
Did I stump a chemical engineer?
Well, I looked into that topic a little bit myself, a little further than we discussed.
Yeah.
And it's not clear. There's a lot of different chemicals and different waxes. Not all of them would necessarily have a PFAS. And because certain PFAS or the chemicals have been restricted, they're not in all the products that they used to be in. So it might be the same for some of the car waxes. I haven't really confirmed.
So that's I'm trying to think about it, because I haven't necessarily heard that the car washes in North Bay are contributing to our PFAS issue, and I don't want to make that statement because I don't know if that is a fact, and so that's where I struggle, because
but there are
that I hope actually is not in fact what's occurring, because the PFAS shouldn't be going into our storm drains at car washes. And so I'm not aware if that is occurring. And if that is occurring, then there's some concerns surrounding that.
But we're in the early days of understanding PFAS. Would you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure, we
fair?
are. Yeah, no, absolutely. We are. It's an emerging contaminant. So we are in the early days of understanding it. So the city, like I said, it came to our attention in 2017. And so we've had some years to kind of focus on where we know the largest area of the largest source of PFAS in North Bay is, and that's at our Jack Garland Airport site. And that's where we're focusing our attention, because we know that is where the hotspot, like I said, or the majority of the mass is. And so we're ensuring that we're effective and efficient with that remediation, because that is where the majority of the PFAS in our community does stem from.
I wonder if it'd be worthwhile to look at what is washing into Lake Nipissing from the car washes anyways, just because who knows, right? But that's another topic, obviously.
Yeah, and I'm not just talking car washes. I'm talking about me and my driveway and the turtle wax or whatever the stuff I have.
Well, all the water that comes through the pipes from Trout Lake that has been monitored and has a certain level of PFAS ends up eventually in Lake Nipissing as well, where we eat a lot of our fish from, right?
Sure.
Is anybody testing that?
Yeah, so we've actually tested the water at our wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
And there is some PFAS, which would be expected because there's PFAS in our municipal drinking water. The concentrations, though, are not, they're very similar to the concentrations that are in our municipal drinking water, if not a little bit lower, because they've been diluted, of course, with stormwater and rainwater that have gotten in. So the concentrations at our wastewater treatment facility do not lead me to believe that there are significant other sources of PFAS that are entering our sanitary sewer stream.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah, that clears up a little thought in my mind. Well, then I read articles about the PFAS is in the rain and the atmosphere and it just drops wherever it wants, right?
Oh, really? Uh-huh.
Is that true?
I can't speak to that necessarily. I really am the project manager for
that's cool.
For the PFAS remediation at the Jack Garland Airport
I don't
site.
know if everybody understands it, even the guys that are supposed to understand it, but that's just me.
And I'm sure, like in this meeting, there'll be some people like wanting some answers right away when I don't think all the answers are there yet. It's an emerging, problem that we're trying to figure out, and so keeping everybody calm through that is going to be somewhat challenging, because there'll be things like, I've heard that the rain is dropping PFAS.
Sure, and that's part of why it's taken us so long to get to remediation. And one of the really exciting things that we're going to be talking about at the open house is that remediation is coming up. And so this public information session really is timely because the remediation is occurring this year. And we're going to be starting remediation at the Jack Garland Airport site in 2024, or that is the intention. And the tender's almost ready to go out to market. and we will be, shovels in the ground, hopefully by, September, October. And so that's something that we are excited to talk about because, this project started for myself and the city of North Bay in 2017, and it's been a long road and a complicated road to get there. But now we're finally ready to hopefully start removing some of that PFAS mass and prevent it from going, downstream and getting into our creeks and rivers and into trout lakes. So, and the reason why it took so long is you kind of alluded to, this is a really complicated problem. And to solve really complicated problems and to address these kind of, issues, you need to understand them. And in order to get to a solution that's going to be effective and efficient and, fiscally responsible, you really do need to understand it. And this is really complicated. So in order to understand it, we had to get some funding. It's expensive to do this kind of work. And we got funding from the Department of National Defense. We got a $20 million shared responsibility agreement where Department of National Defense is coming to the table and they're funding 97% of the work that we're doing at the airport site. And we hired expert consultants. There are people, in the world that know a lot more about PFAS than I do. And this is their everyday life. Like they are living, breathing PFAS all day. And this is where they're doing their research. So we hire these experts and they come in and they lead us down the right path to ensure that our remediation is effective and that we can remove as much of this PFAS mass as possible.
What if it goes out of scope? Not that a project's ever gone out of scope in North Bay, but sorry. Just trying to be light. No, but
Sure.
you're about to unearth something that everybody's learning, and that does the city have to pay for that, or do you have to negotiate back with D&D again?
Sure. So that's part of what this project was. We went into the shared responsibility agreement with the Department of National Defense, knowing that we didn't fully understand the extent of what we would need to do for remediation, but understanding that we would need funds.
Right.
So our best, our educated guess was the $20 million. And we worked with consultants to ensure that number made sense at that time. And that gets us with our investigation work and all of our studies that need to get done and a tender and some remediation. And there is a clause in that agreement, however, and D&D and the City of North Bay both knew that it was important to get a clause in the agreement that noted if the scope changes, we can come back. The City of North Bay can use this avenue again, this shared responsibility avenue, and go back to the Department of National Defense and negotiate additional funding if required.
Are they keeping a close? There's 12 bases across the country, much larger than North Bay. Are they keeping is this their first look at a remediation type thing? Are they saying, okay, let's see how this goes in North Bay because we're going to go to Cold Lake, we're going to go, Moose Jaw, all these different bases, Comox, all these different places?
We are not the first.
Okay.
And I don't think we'll be the last.
Yeah.
So no, we aren't the first. And the project manager that I've been working with is the first project manager that I dealt with. So it's been very consistent, myself and the project manager for the Department of National Defense. We talk to each other weekly. We have a great working relationship. And she manages other PFAS-related contamination at other sites throughout Canada.
North Bay Echo is proud to partner with Twigs Coffee Roasters, a part of the community since 1995. Twigs offers a wide selection of quality beans, fresh roasted in-house every day. Find your favorite specialty drinks at our espresso bar, rejuvenate with freshly squeezed juice, or treat yourself to mouth-watering selections from our gourmet deli. And don't forget our irresistible fresh baked goods, including uncompromising gluten-free options. Twigs has 5 locations to serve you from North Bay to Sturgeon Falls to Sudbury. Order online for pickup at twigs.ca. And coming soon, you'll be able to order fresh roasted coffee beans direct to your doorstep from our distribution center in North Bay.
I'm putting you on the spot here. What is, because it's probably something as a community we never see, like your jobs and things that you do. Can you tell me something you're super proud of that in the last 17 years you've been working with in the city that you went, you know what, we had this like challenge and we went in and we, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you must have done some really fascinating stuff that
you can start with some of your other responsibilities.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So I'm the director of water, wastewater, and environmental
Okay.
services for the city of North Bay. So I manage our drinking water system. So our plants,
This is the new plant.
facilities, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was my first job at the city of North Bay. So in my mind always goes back to what I call my firstborn,
Yeah.
which is the drinking water treatment plant in
Which
North
is
Bay.
beautiful, by the way. I've had a couple of tours.
Yeah. So my first job working for the city of North Bay was in 2006. I was an intern on site watching that plant get built.
So when did Walkerton happen? That happened
2000.
2000? Walkerton happened?
Walkerton outbreak occurred in 2000. 2002 is when the new Safe Drinking Water Act came out.
So there must have been massive pressure on you and your whole department, but it's like, okay, this is new. We got to make this right. There's a ton of things we have to. That would have been. I can see why that would be a huge project and something you're proud of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was a 4-year construction, and then to operate this new facility, because of course it was very different than the previous facility that the city of North Bay had. And the previous facility was basically almost a pumping station, right? Like you had some chlorine and you had some UV filters, and you pumped the water to the residents of the city of North Bay. And this new facility has, membrane filtration, and it's very automated, and there's computers that are controlling all of these valves. And so a whole new world for a lot of the operators that had previously been operating the old facility.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really an exciting time in my career. And it was right when I first started at the city. So I got to watch the plant get built for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then I got to watch it get commissioned and be part of that commissioning, and then to be managing the operation of it day to day. And I still, believe it or not, get calls every once in a while from the operators. Hey, there's something going on with the membranes. And I'm always happy to arrive at the plant and be like, oh, hey, this is what's going on, because I really enjoyed I enjoy that operation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do love, I love drinking water.
Well, it's a massive responsibility too, right? Like all of us, it's a huge part of our day-to-day life, and it's on your portfolio or in your portfolio.
Yeah. I consider myself lucky to be able to ensure that the water that the residents in North Bay are drinking is safe and meets the legislation of the Safe Drinking Water Act. I think that's exciting. And it's exciting that I get to be part of the wastewater treatment process, because I manage the wastewater side of things. So
there's a lot of work going on there now. What's happening at the what do we call it? Wastewater treatment? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, there's been for a number of years, I'd say last 3-4 years, because that's usually my running path. I always go by and there's always work going on there. What's happening there?
So lots of capital projects, very different than our drinking water plant. So it was built the late 50s, went online in 1962. And it's actually, a lot of people don't know, but it's our highest valued city asset. So replacement value of that facility is, $300 to $400 million.
What?
Yes. Our wastewater treatment plant. It's 12 buildings. There are tunnels that connect every building. It is a very, very interesting process. And
so I've never been in.
It needs a little bit of love, because it's getting older, and so we have some capital improvements that are required. So we're doing structural repairs, we're doing new roofs, new bricks on some of the buildings. We're putting new pumps in. I
haven't been through, but it seems to be popular for horror movies, right?
I absolutely was there when they filmed, and I met Lawrence Fishburne.
Did you really? Yeah.
I did.
Was he
so
nice?
He was.
Yeah.
He was very kind.
But,
yeah.
So it looks like a horror movie.
They said, I need, if you can picture like the tunnels and it's very horror movie-esque.
I remember at the Nugget when we were covering the water issues for Trout Lake, and when Dr. Catherine Whiting declared it unsafe to drink, and we all learned how to spell turbidity.
Yeah.
There you go. And with our new plant, that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, and that was huge. How much did that plant cost? Was that 45?
It was a $40 million project, not including the consulting work. So probably after you bring in kind of the consulting work and that, the contract with the contractor was just over $39 million.
Oh, so like half a double rank at Omish. See, this is my role here.
Yeah, the negative guy. Karin, I want to ask you, we've centered this around PFAS. Is there something that it's probably happened all the time? It's like, okay, you guys are asking about PFAS, but maybe we should, as a community, I'm not trying to put you on the spot in any ways, like we need to look at more of, and I don't know what it is. It's like how we put fertilizer on our lawns and it's close to our lakes, or how our septic systems near the lake and stuff operators. Is things like that more prevalent? I don't know if I'm using the right words, but something that should have more of a light than, let's say, PFAS as we learn about that.
Like from an environmental services perspective.
Yeah.
I've been really focusing a lot of effort on our waste diversion strategy for our environmental services group, and preserving the life of our Merrick landfill site. And that's
in your portfolio too?
Yeah. So garbage
you're
collection and
busy.
recycling, hazardous waste, contaminated sites, our Merrick landfill operation. So we do have a waste diversion strategy in the city of North Bay, and we've actually had some really big wins over the past couple of years. We have the lowest volume of waste in 2023 that has ever gone to our landfill since it opened.
That's impressive.
It is, and it opened in 1994. So that is really good. So we've been focusing a lot of effort on outreach in terms of, your 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. That is actually in order. So reduce first. So, as a consumer, think about, can I get some, do I need this? And then reuse, and then recycle. And so we've been focusing a lot of effort on that waste diversion strategy, trying to get people to use their blue box. The city of North Bay is starting to put recycling in public spaces. And that's something that our council approved in the past year. Really lead by example, and ensure that at our arenas, we'll be recycling, and in the downtown we'll be recycling, and all of our city facilities will make sure that we have blue boxes available and recycle. So we've been focusing a lot of effort on that in the past couple of years.
Not that long ago, my brother was going away. He lives in Pickering, and he said, "Hey, can you stay at my place for a week and look after things?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And when you're in Southern Ontario, or Pickering as example, it was really, I was trying to understand all these boxes they have. They have so many boxes of different things, like where you put all your refuge, and it was like and they go out at different days. It was really quite complicated. Will we eventually evolve to that where we're putting out, waste differently than we are today?
That's possible.
Council decision, is it?
Any update that we would make to our waste diversion strategy, we have a lot of strategies that are in there to help reduce the volume of waste that goes to our landfill, but all of them will be put out for consideration to council, and in the end, council can make those final decisions.
Because there's a cost to it, right?
Sure, absolutely. And so I think what you're kind of speaking about is the green bin and the organics.
Yes.
And right now, we haven't been focusing our efforts on the organics, and we have a couple reasons for that. The first one is our Merrick landfill actually is a engineered landfill site. So it is clay lined. So it doesn't allow the leachate or kind of dirty garbage juice to leach into the ground.
Yeah.
And it's capped. So we put impermeable clay on the top of it as well.
Okay.
And we collect that leachate and it goes to a wastewater plant. So there's actually a small wastewater plant at our landfill. And then all of the organics that are in our landfill decompose and create methane gas. That methane gas is captured and it is fed to a generator. And the generator is operated by North Bay Hydro. North Bay Hydro then feeds that electricity to the grid. And the city collects revenue for that. So
it's awesome.
The organics that are in our landfill are, the methane that's produced from that is actually generating some revenue for the city of North Bay. And the organics actually don't make up a large volume of our waste.
Interesting.
They don't. So we do waste audits. We're doing one right now.
Yeah.
But we've done them annually over just the past couple of years.
Chris Main goes into everybody's boxes. Anybody remembers that? Remember Chris Main was
remember.
going to be, it was a big you went into, and there was a big controversy. Get Chris Main out of my, my recycle box.
I think at the Nugget we were talking about going through his.
yeah.
So we actually like pull garbage bags just off the truck.
Yeah.
And we start ripping open garbage bags. And
Whose job is
we
that?
partner with Canadore College
okay.
and their environmental program. And these
love it?
students are phenomenal.
Yeah.
These students are excited to do it, believe it or not. And it informs our waste diversion strategy. So they actually sort everything. And then we know where to focus our effort because we understand what's going into the waste. And unfortunately, about 40% of what is in that waste is divertible material. Material that we
40%.
it's actually we already have diversion strategies for them. So blue box material. I think almost 30% is blue box material. Like just put it in the blue box instead of putting it in the waste stream. That's 30% of what we're finding.
Is there a couple of things in particular? It's like, I don't think people even know. Like I don't know, is it Tim Hortons cup?
No.
Because it's
not.
wax lined, right?
It's unfortunate, but yes, that's accurate. That is waste. But we're seeing pop cans, we're seeing plastics, we're seeing
Really?
Yeah, I know.
would have thought that's all fascinating. Can we continue this another time?
Yeah, we'd like to
And
have
we want
you
your
back
dad to come in,
for
'cause he's super
specific to
smart.
this. Yeah, for sure. And we can talk about the hazardous waste depot and that kind of stuff. This has been very informative. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Karin.
I hope everything goes well for you today, because it'll be today when this
When
comes
it
out.
happens,
yeah.
We'll have at the beginning of this a little bit of structure to promote the open house. And we'll be putting that in our newsletter, the Echo Essentials newsletter. Please subscribe. And other than that, just thank you for coming in here and going through this process with us. I knew it's a little bit of anxiety to come in for a podcast, but I think you did very well for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think people would appreciate seeing a human side, somebody explaining this, because it's scary for a lot of people.
It is.
Right.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Karin.
Well, that was very illuminating.
I really like her. Super smart. Now what I want to do, I wonder if we can make this happen. And we can maybe make it a fundraiser or something. If we could get Scott Abbott to play a game of Trivial Pursuit, I want her on our team.
Yeah.
And we get Scott, I don't know, would he ever, we'll raise money for something.
We'll put her dad on the other team.
Yes, her dad's uber smart. He taught at Nipissing. He's written books. He's had books about him. We gotta
Doctorate
have
from
him.
Harvard.
I know.
Wow.
We got to get him in for an interview.
Yeah.
That would be a really
Taught
interesting
astronomy
interview. I wonder,
on a
I wonder
whim.
if we can get Scott Abbott to play a game of Trivial Pursuit.
I have never seen the guy do anything social.
Yeah, he comes out to the golf tournaments. You'll see him at golf tournaments and stuff.
Oh, no,
He
I've
likes-
never been invited.
Well, you haven't been invited?
Not
Well,
to
read
the
between the
Italian
lines.
one, just to cover them. Yeah. Just bugging. Yes, excellent. And I'm hoping everybody gets a chance to go to the open house, ask their questions, learn what they need to do. I know the Trout Lake Conservation Association is very pumping up this meeting. They're right on top of this topic, and they're going to have a whole bunch of people there as well. It's in their newsletter. If you want to get the TLCA's newsletter, they have a lot of good information.
How do you get the TLC newsletter?
I'll send you a hookup. I signed up on their website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we provide a link in the story for that?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Right on. And I don't know. Been
was
a good week.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Scott Clark.
And I'm Dave Dale. And I want you to sign up for the newsletter or get one of your friends to. Thank you very much.